Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Go Wellness Pack webinar. We're so stoked to have you on today. Before we get started, I'll go through a couple announcements. We've got session 1 coming up February 25th and 26th. Virtual registration will remain open until like the day before the event. We are really looking forward to seeing you. So we've got a really beautiful 2 days of learning about to happen. We'll be covering our new Accelerate Wellness programs. We've got Michael Burnoff coming to speak. Dr. Eccles got some really great stuff. He's going to be talking about like the original Emperor's Medicine and original bioenergetics, I think is what it was. So yeah, we're really excited. We hope to see you. And that's all I've got as far as announcements go. Regan, how's it going today?
It's going really well. And I'm super pumped for today. We're going to be talking about sarcopenia. And so this is something that we mentioned a year ago. And so we're creating some new content. And I just want to make sure that you guys are fully utilizing all the skills that you learned in session 1 of 2021, which seems like so long ago. But one of the main pieces that we talked about insulin resistance, and we'll be circling back to insulin resistance. But the other thing we talked heavily about is sarcopenia. Now, this is a big deal. So let's kind of jump into what sarcopenia is. Well, first of all, sarcopenia is when you have a loss of muscle mass as we age. And so if you think about your patients, one of the goals of Go Wellness is to help you simplify the thinking when it comes to taking on like really challenging cases. And sometimes simplifying your thinking, it just means you boil it down to the single biggest threat that if you could reverse 1 or 2 threats from that person, 1 or 2 interferences, you could change the trajectory of their health forever. And so one of those big things is insulin resistance. The other big thing is this sarcopenia. And so sarcopenia is where you've got a loss of muscle mass over time. And if you look at our muscle, it's so powerful because one of the things that it is it's the very it's got the most insulin dependent receptors on it. So insulin resistance shows up in the muscles first. So if you start to notice sarcopenia, it usually goes hand in hand with insulin resistance. But if you want to build greater insulin sensitivity, all you need to do is put on muscle mass. And so we actually, and I've read this study maybe like 15 years ago out of the this diabetic journal. I think it was like the American Journal of Diabetes or something. And they actually did a study where they found that they could reverse type 2 diabetes in men by getting men to lift weights and to put on an average of 15 pounds of muscle in place of 15 pounds of fat. So if they could get these men to lose 15 pounds of fat and put on 15 pounds of muscle, they found that their hemoglobin A1C came down and started to balance out. And then they also found that wasn't enough. They realized that what they had to do is they also needed to get their testosterone up. So as long as the testosterone was up above 600, which is still pretty low and from our standards, then they were able to reverse diabetes. So pretty amazing. But the sarcopenia, especially for those of us who have patients in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we've got to start doing something about this. So 88% of all adults are at risk for sarcopenia, and 18 million have been clinically diagnosed. And the great thing about this is clinically preventable. And so we're going to show you how this looks. So if you think about sarcopenia, a normal musculature skeletal system, you're going to have muscle structures, you'll have some fat, and you'll have the bone. Sarcopenia is when your muscles start to atrophy, and those acids, there's acids that break down your muscles, and it's called a catabolic state. And when our body gets in a catabolic state, we start losing muscle mass and we start gaining more fat. And so sarcopenia is a big thing that we want to look at. Sarcopenia has its foundation in inflammation. So you'll see it with specific cytokines that are activated. You'll see it in oxidative stress, hypoxia, acidosis, tumor-derived factors. You'll see patients have sarcopenia who've been inactive or they're on bed rest, immobility. You'll see it in aging. As I mentioned before in the study, the older that people are, that starts to impact their sex hormones, their apoptosis, their mitochondrial dysfunction kicks in. They have more DNA mutations and a lower antioxidant capacity. So we see this number one marker of inflammation is the homocysteine in these cases. And homocysteine is one of those markers that you can share with your patients that, hey, you're trending towards this condition called sarcopenia. And it's dangerous because as we lose muscle mass, we start losing balance and strength. And that means when you fall, you can't get back up. Or the other thing it means is when you have sarcopenia, your bones become more brittle and osteopenia, osteoporosis start to kick in. And as we know from the research, when people have a broken bone or a fractured bone, that's what gets them out of the game the fastest. And so this is most critical thing for you guys to start working on. In the endocrine system with sarcopenia, you're going to see the glucocorticoids. So remember the cortisol levels, they'll hover at an imbalanced state. So some of the patients with the worst sarcopenia, their cortisol starts out as flat in the morning, and then it just stays the same all day long. Or it may start out with a little bump in the morning and then stays a little higher around noon and then drops off. That's a typical sign. You're going to see a low vitamin D status, low growth hormone. They're going to have low IGF-1. And then they're going to have thyroid imbalances and insulin resistance. These are some of the things you want to look at on the endocrine portion of your labs. And then with anorexia, they're going to have lower energy intake. They're going to have social and psychiatric factors. You're going to see polypharmacy. A lot of these patients with sarcopenia, and you've seen it in your practice, the more medication someone's on, especially when they're on like the hypertensive med with the diuretic, with the statin, which is like 50% of the population, you're going to see them be on multiple other medications that lead to polypharmacy syndrome, dyspepsia. They're going to have dysphagia, low protein intake, malabsorption. You'll see their blood urea nitrogen levels are off. Their total protein may be low, blood urea nitrogen may be high, and so they're not breaking down those proteins. And then from a neurodegeneration perspective, you're going to see vascular issues. This is where the blood vessels, maybe they've had their veins stripped, for example, but you're going to see some mascular. You're going to see mascular issues. Massive issues in the vascular system, motor neuron loss, demyelination. They'll just have pretty poor proprioception with sarcopenia. And so as you guys are looking at your patients, trying to analyze what they've got going on, don't overlook sarcopenia. It's a real easy one to be like, nah, it's no big deal. Like everyone's got it and it's just what we got to deal with. But actually what we found is by addressing sarcopenia head on, if you can reverse this, then you start to multiply and you have those residual results with your patients. Now, the one caveat is you got to realize I'm a bit, I'm biased towards treating the circulatory system, because one of the ways acupuncture works is by stimulating different neural pathways, which stimulates better blood circulation in the body. And so acupuncture, in my mind, is simply used at its most basic level is to promote better blood circulation. So sarcopenia is when you've got blood stagnation, which in Chinese medicine, that's kind of the foundation of all disease. And so hopefully you guys get a chance to, if you're not Chinese medical practitioner, hopefully you guys get a chance to, really look into that medicine too, because you can add it into this sarcopenia and you'll say, oh, wow, a lot can happen with this. So one of the treatments, growth hormones. So we're going to talk about that, but we see when growth hormone is inhibited by somatostatin, what happens is we don't get the pulses of growth hormone like we do when we're a kid. And so this is where we use different growth hormone releasing peptides. And the easiest one that we found was sarcopenia, and the formula that has actually been studied for sarcopenia, it's gone through clinical trials, is sarcotropin IPA. And for many of you who are just starting down the pathway of utilizing peptides, this is one of the easiest peptides to start implementing in your practice today. We always carry about 10 or 20 of these in our practice because we go through about 10 a week. And so you always want to have a stockpile of the sarcotropin ipamorelin. So what this is it's a liquid base, and it's super easy to take. I remember the first time I took it, I noticed a tingling. I noticed my scalp was had a little extra blood circulation in it. My fingers felt better. And it gave me a nice boost right before my workout. You want to take this fasted because remember, insulin is the hormone that's going to disrupt your growth hormone. And so growth hormone cannot be secreted at the same time as your insulin is. And so sarcotropin, take it first thing in the morning or before bed. I like it first thing in the morning because it does have some little bit of stimulatory impacts from some of the amino acids and the nootropics in it, but it's really powerful. So some of the ingredients are, it's got pralmorelin, and the pralmorelin is a growth hormone releasing peptide too. It's got ipamorelin so that you don't get super hungry and want to eat everything in sight. Remember, ipamorelin is that somatostatin inhibitor so you can get the growth hormone pulse. And when you use ipamorelin with the growth hormone releasing peptide 2, you're going to see a 7 times greater pulsation of growth hormone. And when Justin Kirkland from Wells Pharmacy, when he actually did the numbers on this peptide, what he found is he said, wow, they put in about 100 times the dose, so that you can absorb it orally. Because, one of my skepticisms when I was introduced to sarcotropin was the fact that, in order to get growth hormone to the levels that we want it to from a peptide perspective, it's almost impossible to do it orally because it's such poor bioavailability. It's like 3 to 4% of it actually gets absorbed. And so I'm sure there's some resourceful people out there who are like, how can I recycle my poop? But please don't do that. But one of the things that happens with this is just by getting 3 to 4%, because of the high quantity of the growth hormone in here, is your patients are going to get a similar dose as they would by taking 0.20 or 0.2 mLs of CJC 1295 with ipamorelin. So pretty darn cool. But the other benefit of using sarcotropin for sarcopenia is it's got vitamin D3 is cholecalciferol. It's got the specific vitamin K process in there that helps break down bone spurs, but helps also create more vascular flexibility and better circulatory patterns in those little microcapillaries. And then it's got alpha GPC, DMAE, and GABA. And as you know, these things are just powerful for brain function. And then some of the amino acids, it's got the L-leucine, L-arginine, the L-pyroglutamic acid, and then it's got mucopurines, velvet bean extract, and then finally rosacea plum juice. And the rosacea plum juice, not only is it good for the colon, remember, we got to make sure people are eliminating that. Phase 3 elimination is really important. You got to get the poop out. But the plum juice also helps with staving hunger. So sarcotropin, some of the clinical research I'll share with you, just to give you an overview here. In the 90-day phase 3 clinical study, they found there was a 9% loss of total body fat, 14% loss of visceral fat, 5% gain in lean muscle mass, and then a 16% increase in IGF-1. So it's a very powerful formula. And if you look at the just kind of the overall perspective, if you can help somebody prevent that breakdown in bone mass and muscle mass, this is where you reduce the risk of fractures. You increase their body's ability to be active, healthy, happy. Hey everybody, Regan Archibald here. I hope you enjoyed the Go Wellness show and maybe learned a couple things you could apply to your practice. If you're a healthcare entrepreneur who wants to work in an academic think tank with like-minded humans who are just like you, looking to provide better service, better quality of care for your patients, reach us at info@gowellness.com and we're happy to do a free practice analysis for you.